but not before I get into the significance of this weekend in various sports topic items. Number one, real quickly, before I even get into the boxing match, there's a UFC match taking place in Utah Saturday night between Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje for the BMF title at 155 pounds. I don't expect that to go to distance. I expect somebody to get knocked out or submitted. I'm picking Dustin Poirier to win that fight, even though Justin Gaethje is no joke, and he's a knockout artist with either hands. He's something special. Both of them are 6-2 in their last 8 fights since Dustin Poirier beat Justin Gaethje about 5 years ago. Both of them have 6-2 records. I expect Dustin Poirier to beat him again because I think his ground game is better. Obviously, I could be wrong because one punch can end the night. That's how it goes in the UFC or any pugilistic sport for that matter. And it wouldn't surprise me if that happened here, but I'm still betting my money on Dustin Poirier. Not that I'm a bettor here in Vegas. I leave that to my sister Carmen, who likes to use the slot machines. That's not my style. But the bottom line is I'm not really a bettor. Nevertheless, most of you out there are. And I think that when you look at Dustin Poirier, I think you have to take into consideration not only his boxing ability, his striking ability, but also his jiu-jitsu. And the fact is that you have a lot of people, a lot of aficionados out there for MMA and UFC evaluating his skill set and believing that Justin Gaethje just doesn't want any part of a ground game. Justin Gaethje would beg to differ. He says he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. He can handle it. But the reality is usually when we see him beating somebody, he's usually knocking them out. That's what he's usually doing. And in the case of Dustin Poirier, I don't know if that's going to be something he's going to be able to do because I know that Dustin believes he's got an advantage on the ground. And as a result, if you get Justin Gaethje to the ground, that will be your advantage. And I think that's why Dustin Poirier is probably going to win this fight again, his rematch with Justin Gaethje, even though I expect it to be a thriller. I expect it to be epic. And I love those BMF title shots. I mean, we saw Jorge Masvidal versus Nate Diaz years ago. This is better than that. This is better than that. These are two individuals that are very elite in their craft and number 2 and number 3 respectively in the rankings. This is a better matchup than that. So I'm going with Dustin Poirier. Let me get to boxing because I'm here in Vegas. And let me tell you something about being in Vegas. You see, it just does something to me. I know that I love my basketball and I'm synonymous with the NBA. I know I've come to love the National Football League because it has become religion. I mean, we've got pastors evolving their sermons around Sunday football for crying out loud. Used to be from 11 to 1. Now we got to move it up because I got to get home in time for kickoff. We understand how this goes. They're not going to admit it because the Lord is watching, but we know what they do. We know what they do. And nevertheless, with that being said, here's the reality of the situation. There's a Saturday night that comes before Sunday morning football. And Saturday nights are at its best when there is a big-time boxing match. And ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is Terence Crawford, the reigning WBO champion, going up against Errol Spence Jr., the reigning WBA, WBC, and IBF champion. All 4 belts on the line. The winner will be the undisputed welterweight champion of the world. We get it. That is not why this is an epic fight. I've seen some fights before. I've seen fights for the title and all of this other stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, again, I'm a fan of the UFC. I'm a fan of MMA. I'm a fan of what Dana White does with that organization. But I love me some boxing. You understand? I go back to the days of Ali. You know what I'm saying? Ali versus Foreman, Ali versus Frazier, Ali versus Mike Weaver for crying out loud, or Larry Holmes, who ultimately forced him into retirement, although it was Berbick that ultimately did him in when all was said and done. I used to watch Mike Weaver. I watched him knock out Jerry Coetzee, a South African, for crying out loud. I watched George Foreman knock Joe Frazier upside the back of his head. My father, it's still the funniest moment in boxing history in my father's eyes. To the day he died, there wasn't a day that went by he didn't laugh when you brought up George Foreman knocking Joe Frazier upside the back of his head, ultimately before that fight was stopped. And Howard Cosell, the late, great Howard Cosell, screaming, "It is over. It is over," okay? Or down goes Frazier. I love my boxing. I'm talking about Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Aguero. I'm talking about Wilfredo Benitez against Sugar Ray Leonard. I'm talking about Ray Leonard against Tommy the Hitman Hearns. Fight 1 that went 14 rounds. This is back in the day when fights went 15 rounds. He ain't stopped at 12, okay? This is back in those days. I remember when Hands of Stone, Roberto Duran, got his head twisted 180 degrees before falling to the canvas face first via a knockout at the hands of Tommy the Hitman Hearns. I remember when a guy, Pepino Cuevas, was considered that dude until he ran into the Hitman, Tommy the Hitman Hearns. I remember when Tommy the Hitman Hearns was beating up on Iran Barkley, but Barkley caught him with a right in the third round and ultimately dropped him and put him to sleep. I remember all of this. I was a huge, marvelous Marvin Hagler fan. I remember Mustafa Muhammad Kwawi, and how he ultimately lost to Evander Holyfield, who was a light heavyweight before he became a heavyweight. Don't get me started with the heavyweights that I've seen throughout history, okay? I love my boxing. And boxing for many, many years in recent memory has disgusted me because we don't get the fights we want to see when we want to see them. That ends tomorrow night. Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. is the biggest fight in boxing since Floyd Money Mayweather went up against Manny Pacquiao. The hype going into the fight was epic. It was real, even though it was 5 years too late, because they should have fought years earlier. This fight is as big. It has the potential to be as big as that. Now, let me make sure that I'm clear with everybody. This fight right here will unquestionably be better than Floyd Money Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao in the ring. The hype is similar to it, although it doesn't quite measure up to Floyd Money Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao. But the performance inside the ring, I have no doubt in my mind with Crawford going against Errol Spence Jr. that it's going to be better than Floyd versus Pacquiao, because Floyd could backpedal and kick your ass. Floyd could backpedal doing that. He's hitting, but he's not getting touched. This is different. This is different. This is two brothers that don't know how to run. They don't know how to backpedal. They know how to move. They know how to stick and move. They know how to be a bit evasive, but not to the degree of a Floyd Money Mayweather. I remember when Floyd Money Mayweather fought Saul Canelo Alvarez. It got so bad that one time, it's a true story. It got so bad that one time, Canelo threw a punch and Floyd Money Mayweather tapped him on the shoulder and said, "I'm behind you." That's how brilliant of a defensive tactician Floyd Money Mayweather was. This is different. None of these guys, as skilled as they are, both offensively and defensively, they're not on that level. And because they're not on that level, they're going to be there to hit and to get hit. Someone may fall. Someone may get knocked out. I'm predicting it's probably going to go the decision route. I'm leaning towards Crawford. I've picked Crawford by decision, but my list is fluid. My prediction is fluid. I reserve the right to change my mind because it's that close. It's that close. So I just wanted to get that out the way.